Alright, welcome back. Here's a video today comparing two 10 millimeters that I have. One that is kind of in the mid-price range of what you can get a 10 millimeter for, and the cheapest 10 millimeter you can get. Right here is the HiPoint JXP 10 millimeter auto, and I have a Glock 20 Gen 5 sitting on the bench. So I'll go over a couple quick specs here between the two, and then I'll kind of show basically some size comparisons as well as a few thoughts about the two. So first up, the HiPoint weighs 49 ounces unloaded with the mag in. So that's a chunky boy. The Glock 20 Gen 5 weighs 29.81 ounces unloaded. The HiPoint holds 10 rounds in a magazine, and you only get one. The mags look a little bit better than HiPoints of old days. The Glock 20 holds 15 rounds, and it does come with 3 mags, which is a really nice feature, just to have more mags on hand. The Glock 20 sports a the Glock 20 sports a 4.61 inch barrel. So that's actually plenty long enough to actually get quite a bit out of the 10 millimeter. The HiPoint does come with a 5.2 inch barrel that is threaded. So as you can see, it sticks out. You can get a shorter flush mount or flush barrel that would offer actually a little bit more in terms of comparability, but that does offer quite a bit there in terms of extra speed and potential there for velocity that you can get out of that barrel. Overall length on the HiPoint is 8.5 inches from nose to the rear end here, and on the Glock it is 8.07 inches, so very comparable. I think pretty much the biggest difference there is going to be that little extended barrel with the thread. I didn't get a overall width on this. Actually, let me see if I have my calipers on hand. I don't see them. Okay, so I didn't get a width on the HiPoint, at least that they advertised on their website. It is thick though to know. On the Glock it is about 1.38 inches wide, so substantially thinner between the two, but yeah. Then one big thing to note, and before I start kind of showing size comparisons, is that this HiPoint I picked up for $199. The Glock 20 was $629. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty here of comparing the two. As you can see, the HiPoint has a heck of a lot higher bore axis. I mean, actually you can see the Glock slide is almost the same height as that upper part on the HiPoint before you get to that flat. Now there's a lot to do with that. I mean, HiPoints are blowback action guns, so they need a lot of mass to be able to slow down the action so you can actually use it without blowing the gun up. In terms of grip width here, they're pretty close actually. It's nothing really crazy. The Glock is actually thinner, but I mean, it's thinner. It's closer than I would have figured between the two. Height-wise, I don't know if you can line up the sights there. The HiPoint is substantially taller. Now that is because they run an extended magazine base plate here. I've never really cared for the look of these, and I would have almost preferred them to be a flush mag, just because I think it would look a little bit nicer, more polished anyways. In terms of controls, you do get a safety on the HiPoint. You have a pretty heavy trigger. Nothing really to write home about that, but you do get improved grips on these newer models. You do get front and rear serrations. They actually do work. I mean, you can get a grip on them. The front sight on the HiPoint is actually a Glock style sight, so that's kind of cool. And then the rear sight is HiPoint's own doing. You can switch this out with a plate mount system, so you could put an optic on this, whereas the HiPoint comes with the MOS, at least this version does, but it comes with the MOS plate and your standard Glock sights. A little bit more flexibility here. You can mount it a little bit more securely, so that is something to note. Now, a lot of people would be wondering why I would compare these two, because they really aren't, exactly the same class of pistol, for sure. But to anybody who's looking for a, just a cheap 10mm to get into it, I mean, it's definitely worth considering compared to, obviously spending a heck of a lot more money. And the Glock isn't even the most expensive 10mm out there. So you start talking FNs and SIGs, you add a couple $100 onto the MSRP. I will say that the polymer on the Glock, as always, feels a heck of a lot more polished, a little bit nicer. You got kind of a glossier polymer here, a little bit rougher finishing, stuff like that. And it's not the end of the world, like I said. But I mean, really, they are substantially different, but they do serve a very similar purpose. I know a lot of people jump to saying that 10mm is, oh, it's a bear gun, yada yada. Yes, it has been used for defense against bears, but I think it is a very suitable home defense round as well. You got many different choices of rounds that are lower powered, that hit into that 40 Smith & Wesson basically equivalency, and those are very suitable for home defense or concealed carry. But you have the option to go up to higher power, which I think is nice, and I don't think anybody ever hits home about 10mm. Now, what's odd is the HiPoint is stated that it's plus P rated. There is no plus P rating for the 10mm cartridge, so I take that as assuming that it can take hotter loads. So I have actually shot some of these pretty hot Grizzly, Kodiak. Advertised velocity is 1,350 feet per second. Energy is 728 foot-pounds of energy. I've shot these through both of them. The one thing to note on the HiPoint is the chamber, which I won't disassemble it for this video, but it's a little looser, so you get a little bit more flexibility in the brass for sure. I don't think I have a case sitting on my bench. Thought I did, but whereas like on the Glocks, it's pretty standard to get a slight deformation here. And in terms of reloading, you can knock them out. It's not the end of the world. A lot of people are afraid of it. I haven't had any issues so far, so to speak. But I mean, really, the biggest purpose of this video is just to compare really what cheap money will get you compared to what a little bit more of your hard-earned money will get you. Grand scheme of things, if you're only going to get one 10mm pistol, I would probably go for the Glock 20, or I would possibly consider a Smith & Wesson, strictly because it's a little bit better suited to being long-lasting. It's got a little bit more of a pedigree, stuff like that. The HiPoint is definitely neat to be able to shoot 10mm, like I said, cheap and on a budget. It does work. It was fairly accurate enough for me. But I mean, deep down, it's really kind of an individual choice between these two. Like I said, I think it's cool that the HiPoint exists with the 10mm. It's neat the fact that they are willing to put out a 10mm, especially in a blowback design. So it's actually very unique in that aspect. and HiPoints came a long ways. The last HiPoint I had was a metal framed 380, and this is substantially better in terms of, you know, build quality, features, and everything like that. So for $199, you do get quite a bit for what you're buying. Why do I have both? Well, honestly, this HiPoint is kind of, you know, a decent little beater gun. Throw it in the truck. You don't really have to worry about beating it up too much, anything like that. Obviously, HiPoint is a little bit cheaper than the Glock. I don't really want to bang around the Glock as much in terms of, you know, carrying it out maybe in the woods or something like that if I'm walking around or something like that. This is going to hold up, no issues there. The Glock will be fine, and it's fine to get some patina and wear on a Glock. I mean, it's a service pistol, no big deal. But I kind of like the idea of having both. I like 10mm as a round. I think it's very neat. I think it's very useful. And I just kind of like having multiple firearms in the caliber. In terms of reloading, it's cool to work up different loads, see what different guns can do. But between these two, I think there's a definite choice of the Glock is the better gun, for sure. But I just wanted to point out the facts that the HiPoint does have some benefits for it. You know, it is what it is, and in the end, it's nice to have some options out there. So, I don't know, hopefully this video was kind of helpful comparing the two. I'm not suggesting that, you know, a lot of people are going to be considering between these two as a choice, but I wanted to have some size comparisons between the two, let you see what the differences were and stuff like that. So hopefully you found it helpful, and let me know what you think. So, all right, thanks for watching.